Hello and welcome back to PTMTR, where today we are taking a trip down my childhood, taking these humble ingredients, rice and lentils, and turning them into possibly my favourite dish on God's green earth. It's very simple and an iconic Indian comfort food. Now before I start, make sure you do hit subscribe if you are new to my channel, and be sure to like this video too because it will make your mouth water. So we're making Daal Chawal, or lentil soup with lemon rice, and it starts off with this tur dal or pigeon pea, which comes dry or oily, so you want to get the oily kind, and you want to start by washing them out until the cloudy residual water eventually runs clear, after which you want to soak it in hot water for at least half an hour. Now this is probably the best time to do the same with your rice. Now if you aren't using a pressure cooker, keep them soaked minimum for an hour or overnight. You'll see the lentils almost double in size. However, I am using a pressure cooker, so now that they've soaked for half an hour, I'm going to drain and transfer my 1 cup of lentils to my pressure cooker on a medium heat, along with 2 cups of water. Then you want to add about half a teaspoon of turmeric or haldi, along with a couple of pinches of kosher salt, or half the amount in table salt. Then you want to mix it through until the salt dissolves, and then just simmer it. This should bring up some impurities and form a sort of foam, which floats at the top. So just skim that off the best you can. I like to use a slotted spoon and a small bowl of water to rinse it in. Now whilst that's simmering away, I've got 300 grams of mixed lamb on the bone. Now you can use boneless, but the flavour that the bones give off is simply incomparable when it comes to boned or boneless. I'm going to wash it off in some cold water before throwing in these lamb pieces. Then just give it a good mix through, making sure that the lamb is fully immersed in the water. And if you do need to, top the water off in the pot till it's just below 1/3 of the pressure cooker, or enough water so nothing will sort of stick and burn. Now bring it to a boil and pop that lid on. I'm setting mine on the highest steam setting until there's enough pressure built up inside the chamber, and then bringing the heat down to low. Now just wait 15 minutes while the magic of pressurized steam tenderizes the lamb as if it's been slow cooked for half a day. And obviously the lentils will fully hydrate and break down. Now be very careful here. I'm going to start by releasing some of the pressure. Just make sure to stay clear from the steam because it can burn you almost instantly. Either way, your pot should indicate when it's safe to open. And you should be welcomed by a not so pretty but gorgeous smelling sight. Just checking that nothing is stuck. Nope, we're golden. Now you want to grab a strainer over a bowl and just transfer this whole affair into it. Now very carefully, because the lamb is literally fall apart tender here, remove the lamb into a separate bowl so we can comfortably puree these lentils. Now pressing it through a fine mesh sieve serves 2 purposes. A silky smooth texture, and it'll catch any small bits of skin from the lentils and any bits that are hard. Of course, like always, scrape the bottom of the sieve, we leave no gold behind here, and give that mixture a stir through, and you should be left with this beautiful, homogeneous, silky smooth puree. Now onto our spices. We're using 1 whole black cardamom cracked, 1 stick of cinnamon, 6 cloves, and 5 cracked green cardamom pods. I forgot to film it, but you also want half a teaspoon of whole cumin. Then take your large onion, slice it in half. Now you can see here there's the tip and the root. You want to cut that root out because we want some nice separation when we slice. Now you can see the grain here running from the root to the tip. We want to cut this into thin slices following that grain. This is important for the onion to retain its texture and help them sort of hold up in the stewing process. And now I've got these small fresh tomatoes from my mum's garden. You can use 2 medium-sized ones, but we're just going to quarter these up. Now if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. You can just dice them up, but I prefer blitzing them into a puree. It's much quicker and it blends better into the soup later on. So I'm going to throw these into a hand blender and break them down. Now that's all done, take to your pot again and go in with about a tablespoon of vegetable oil, or enough to cover the bottom of the pan, along with a heaped teaspoon of ghee, which is just clarified butter, and then let it get nice and hot. Then just dump in those spices because we want to infuse the oil with these aromas. And now once that begins to smell incredibly fragrant, throw in your whole chopped onion and then just keep them moving. I'm going in with a pinch of salt to help them sort of sweat faster, but this step is important. You want to caramelize them slightly, but not all the way. So once they become translucent like this, keep an eye on them and keep them moving because soon after you'll get the very edges becoming slightly brown. This is where you want to be. before adding in 1 teaspoon of ginger paste and 1 teaspoon of garlic paste, along with a teaspoon of green chili paste. You can use fresh green finger chilies, but this is more to taste, so 1 teaspoon comes out pretty mild for me. And then add in your tomatoes, to which we're going to add in another half a teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of garam masala, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, and 1 teaspoon of coriander powder. Saute those flavors until they meld into one. My mixture was becoming a bit sticky, so I had to add a splash more oil. And then just add back in your lamb. And of course your lentils. Now the cooler this gets, the more it'll thicken up, so you want to add in some more water just to mix it through. Whilst it's cooking, you want the consistency to be quite runny, because we're going to give this an open simmer, so all those flavors really get to know each other. The longer you leave this to simmer, the better it's going to taste, and of course it'll thicken up. I'm letting mine simmer through for another 10 to 15 minutes, after which I'm going to add in a handful of freshly chopped coriander, which is optional, but just stirring it through the dal to give it some fresh herbaceous lift. Now for the greatest side of all time to Daal Chawal, sweet onions. If you aren't having this as a side, are you even eating Daal Chawal? I've added some whole set yogurt to a bowl with some sugar, which I'm going to stir through until it dissolves. This is all to taste, hence no specific measurements. Just make sure that there's a little more sweetness than tartness in the yogurt. Then just throw in a handful of sliced onions and mix it through. Job's good. Now I don't know about you, but I had these metal plates growing up, and I'd usually pick a prettier plate, but this is in my head how it's supposed to be served. On a cheap metal plate with some super fragrant Indian style chawal, with steaming hot lamb dal spooned on top. And of course sweet onions to cool everything down on the side. Say what you want, it doesn't get better than this. Happy cooking.